Welcome to Fantasia, home of the melodious. My name's Azallea, and today, gonna be bringing you guys another update to my Magician Girl deck. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So starting off, we are playing with 3 copies of Berry Magician Girl, which in my opinion is the best Magician Girl in the archetype, because when she is normal summoned, you can search out any other Magician Girl monster from your deck. And also, whenever she is targeted for an attack, you can actually special summon Magician Girl monsters straight from your deck to your side of the field, so she's actually very, very good in that regard as well. She's also an Earth attribute, so that Shaddoll Fusion, you can send her to the from your deck to the graveyard to summon like Shekanaga, and that's also very nice. But yeah, moving on, we are also playing 1 copy of Lemon Magician Girl. You only need 1 copy of her. She is light attribute, but construct is still banned, so there's no reason to play too many light targets in this deck. But also, Lemon Magician Girl is really subpar, because you have to tribute another Magician Girl monster in order for you to add another Spellcaster monster from your deck to your hand. And it sounds good in theory, but really, if your opponent is playing smart and playing around your effects, you're not going to have too many Magician Girl monsters on your side of the field at the same time. So that's why she's kind of subpar in that regard. Also, if she's targeted for an attack, you can special summon 1 Spellcaster type monster from your hand, but its effects are negated. So if you're doing your Magician Girl summon chains, if your opponent actually attacks into one of your monsters and you keep summoning out Magician Girls, she's one of the last ones that you actually want to use, because whatever you summon with her, it cannot activate its effect to, continue your chain. So that's why you have to keep that in mind. Alright, so that's why we only play 1 copy of her. But next, we're actually playing 2 copies of Apple Magician Girl. Now, Apple Magician Girl is fantastic because it's similar to Lemon Magician Girl, but it has a kind of, sort of, less restrictive effect. So if she's targeted for an attack, you can actually special summon a level 5 or lower Spellcaster type monster from your hand to your side of the field, and its effects are not negated, so that's why it's pretty good. And we're not really playing any monsters that are higher than level 5 in this deck, except for like 1 copy of Dark Magician Girl, but that's a card that you don't even have to run in this deck. I just run it because I like it. Anyway, but Apple Magician Girl, though, if she is ever destroyed, you can target up to 3 other Magician Girl monsters in your graveyard and add them back to your hand, so that's also a pretty decent effect to have. And she's also a fire attribute, so you can actually summon El Shaddoll Grista from your extra deck using Shaddoll Fusion by sending her as one of the materials. Okay, so the next card that we play is going to be the second best Magician Girl, in my opinion, in the archetype, is 3 copies of Chocolate Magician Girl. Now, Chocolate Magician Girl is fantastic because she allows you to go for additional draws. So once per turn, you can discard 1 Spellcaster type monster from your hand and then draw 1 card. And also, if she is ever targeted for an attack, you can actually special summon a Spellcaster type monster from your graveyard to your side of the field. And of course, every time Magician Girl monster is special summoned, you redirect the attack to that new monster that was summoned. So that's why Chocolate Magician Girl is actually pretty good. She has a pretty decent stat line as well. 1600 attack is not too bad in terms of Magician Girls, so yeah. Anyway, moving on, speaking of attack values and how to play around monsters with higher attack stats than yours, we have 3 copies of Kiwi Magician Girl, and she's like a mini Honest for the deck. So during either player's turn, you can actually discard this card, and all Magician Girl monsters that you currently control gain 300 attack and defense for each Magician Girl monster with a different name on the side of the field and in your graveyard until the end of this turn. Also, if she is on the field, Spellcaster type monsters cannot actually be destroyed by card effects, and your opponent cannot target them with card effects either. So she is a blanket protection effect if you ever get her onto your side of the field. Fairly easy to do with things like Chocolate Magician Girl or Apple Magician Girl. So there's that to keep in mind. Alright, so moving on, we are playing 1 copy of Dark Magician Girl. This is just a fun little card that I play. You don't have to play it, but she does add an extra name for Kiwi, and she is a dark monster, so you can always send her to the graveyard to summon things like El Shaddoll Winda from your extra deck, so there is that. But that does it for all the Magician Girl monsters. Next off, we're going to go into the Shaddolls. So for the Shaddolls, we're playing 1 copy of Shaddoll Falco. I only play 1 copy of it because it can keep coming back and you can keep recurring it. But it is a level 2 tuner, which allows you to go for some pretty neat plays. And its flip effect is that you could target 1 Shaddoll monster in your graveyard and special summon it to your side of the field in face down defense position. So it's not that bad. And if it's ever sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can just special summon Shaddoll Falco back to your side of the field in face down defense position. So that next turn, if your opponent ever attacks into it, something like that, you can just use its flip effect, summon back like Shaddoll Beast or, one of your Shaddoll Fusions, and you're good to go when it comes back to your next turn. Okay, so next we're actually playing 2 copies of Shaddoll Hedgehog. Now Hedgehog is pretty good in this deck because of the fact that it helps you search your Shaddoll fusion. So if this card is flipped, you can actually add one Shaddoll spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. So it's searching out the Shaddoll fusion that can go and just net you a lot of good advantage. But also it has the effect of if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can just add one Shaddoll monster from your deck to your hand. So it's pretty good for searching, and searching out Shaddoll monsters and things are pretty good because of the fact that Shekanaga needs you to have like a Shaddoll card in your hand in order to activate its effect to negate your opponent's monster's effects. So that's why it's pretty nice to have something in your hand at all times. And the next card that we play is 1 copy of Shaddoll Squamata. Squamata is pretty good in this deck because it helps you just thin out your deck. It lets you send more cards, whatever you need. You can send Dragon, you can send Beast, Hedgehog, Falco, and it's also an 1800 attack body with a pretty decent flip effect where if you flip it face up, you can target one monster your opponent controls and just destroy it. So that's pretty nice. The next card that we play is going to be 2 copies of Shaddoll Dragon. Shaddoll Dragon, again, fantastic card in this deck because it's a nice beat stick. 1900 attack is nothing to laugh at. And if this card is flipped face up, you can actually just target one card your opponent controls, return to the hand. And if it's sent from your deck to the graveyard, you can just target one spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. So sometimes you really just want to send this when you're summoning things like your window or whatever, and you want to pop your opponent's back row, get rid of some strikes and warnings. Things that really hurt your Magician Girls and stop you from building a pretty decent field. The next card that we play is 1 copy of Shaddoll Beast. I only play 1 copy of this because I don't really like drawing to too many and bricking with it, so having 1 copy of Shaddoll Beast is completely fine. And if it's flipped, you can draw 2 cards and discard 1 card from your hand, and then if this card is sent from your deck to the graveyard by a card effect, you can actually just draw 1 card and just get some more advantage, so that's pretty nice. So that's it for the Shaddoll monsters. Next, we just go into two extra monsters that I play as a tech. So 1 copy of Blackwing Gofu, the Vague Shadow. Gofu is just great for helping us go for some link plays. It's not really too important in this deck, but with something like Decode Talker that can get up to 3300 attack, it's pretty nice to help you beat over some monsters that you originally couldn't beat over. And it's also a level 5 tuner, so you can actually, synchro into a bunch of level monsters depending on what Magician Girls you actually have. So that's why it's actually pretty neat. And last but not least, of course, I play 1 copy of Max C because it's pretty good deterrent when your opponent's trying to go off, and also nets you some additional advantage, and it could potentially help you draw into some of your powerful spell cards that can help you control the field, your opponent's field at least. So yeah, 22 monsters, and pretty good lineup of monsters. I like the ratios that I have here. So yeah, moving on into the spell cards. Alright, so for the spell cards, starting off, we were playing 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion. Now, Shaddoll Fusion is fantastic, especially because a lot of people are going back to the extra deck now because of link summoning and things like that. So Shaddoll Fusion, if your opponent controls an extra deck monster, you can actually just send the materials from your deck straight to the graveyard instead of just using things from your hand or your side of the field. So that's actually very, very nice. And Shaddoll Fusion just allows you to go for incredible monsters like Grista, Winda, Shekanaga, whatever the situation calls for. And Winda is such a powerful floodgate right now, especially because a lot of decks are becoming more and more combo-oriented with a lot of, summoning links after links after links, going into firewalls and things like that. Winda limits your opponent to basically 1 special summon a turn, and if they can't get rid of Winda, they really struggle to establish a nice field. So that's why Shaddoll Fusion, of course, is needed, and it's, of course, searchable by Hedgehog as well. Now, the next card that I play is going to be 3 copies of Magical Dimension. I really love Magical Dimension because of its synergy with Shaddolls and its ability to help you control the field just a little bit more. So, Magical Dimension, if you control a spellcaster type monster, you can target 1 monster that you control, tribute that target, then special summon 1 spellcaster type monster from your hand, and then you can destroy 1 monster on the field. So, the destruction effect of this card actually doesn't target, so it's actually really nice for bypassing some of those monsters that have that protection effect in them. But Magical Dimension also allows you to actually, if you tribute off a Shaddoll monster, you can actually get the Shaddoll's monster's effect in the graveyard. So it's very, very nice for you to actually generate advantage while destroying your opponent's side of the field, while putting extra bodies onto your side of the field, maybe in the form of Magician Girls and things like that, to deter your opponent from attacking in the battle phase. Okay, so the next card that we play is going to be 3 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon, just standard spell and trap removal, so there's that. Next off, we play 1 copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is very nice for helping you trigger some of your Shaddoll monster effects. So you can send things like Beast, you know, to get an extra draw, Dragon to get an extra pop, things like that. And last but not least, we play 1 copy of Raigeki because Magician Girls kind of have a hard time attacking over the opponent's monsters. So if you can nuke their field and then start poking at them directly, it's going to be better for you in the long run. Alright, so that does it for all the spell cards. Next off, we're going to go into some of the trap cards. So for the trap card, starting off, we're playing 1 copy of Shaddoll Core. This is a pretty decent card. Of course, you can search it out with Hedgehog, but it allows you to go for some Shaddoll monsters, Shaddoll fusion monsters, especially when you're running low on Shaddoll monsters in your main deck, maybe used most of them. This is for the late game, grind game. It's pretty good. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can actually just target 1 Shaddoll spell trap card in your graveyard and then add it back to your hand. So you can add back things like your Shaddoll fusion. So that's actually really nice. But 1 is all you really need. And of course, you can special summon it as a body to your side of the field as well, and it's not that bad. Alright, so next off, we're playing 2 copies of Dark Renewal. Dark Renewal is a fantastic card because it allows you to send your opponent's monsters they summon to the graveyard by attributing one of your spellcast type monsters and then sending one of their monsters to the graveyard, and then you can special summon 1 dark spellcast type monster either from your deck or your graveyard. So in this case, we have targets such as Dark Magician Girl, and you have things like El Shaddoll Winda and stuff like that they can just bring back, and it's really, really nice. So being able to recur some monsters, especially Winda, from your graveyard is just a fantastic tool. It just adds, you know, additional floodgate right after you've removed your opponent's monsters they summoned. Okay, so the next card that we play is going to be 3 copies of Storming Mirror Force. Now, Storming Mirror Force is such a good card because of the fact that Magician Girl effects can only activate once per turn. So if your opponent, you know, attacks your Berry Magician Girl and she summons something from your deck, they can target Berry Magician Girl for an attack again, and you can't trigger her effect again. So Storming Mirror Force allows you to kind of like, your opponent's going to think that they're baiting out some of your effects, you're swarming your side of the field, but then when they attack with a follow-up attack, and you activate Storming Mirror Force, and everything returns back to their hand, they're going to be left with a very bad field, and you're going to have generated some advantage from triggering some of your Magician Girl effects before you've activated this. So that's why it's a really great card, and also clears your opponent's side of the field. They don't have anything left, everything's returned to the extra deck or their hand, and then that leaves them wide open for you to attack for some more damage next turn. Okay, so next card, last card that we play in this deck is going to be 3 copies of Solemn Strike. Just having this counter trap card that allows you to stop your opponent's monster's effects, you know, stop your opponent's hand traps, things like that, is just fantastic. Especially because Magician Girls are quite slow as a deck, and Shaddolls, they help you generate advantage, but it's over time. So you need that time, you need the extra turns to be able to build up your field and build up your resources, and Solemn Strike helps you get there. So yeah, this is it for the main deck. So next off, we're going to go into the side deck. Alright, so for the side deck, starting off, we were playing 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Now, Ghost Ogre is great hand trap, and I just didn't have the space to main it in the main deck, so that's why it's in the side deck for those matchups where, you know, you're trying to destroy your opponent's field spells and things like that. It's a great card, and of course, it's a tuner as well, so you can use it for that purpose if you need to. Next off, I'm actually playing the Kaiju engine. Now, Kaiju synergize really well with Magician Girls because the fact that if your opponent controls a Kaiju, they're more likely than not, you're more likely than not removing a really powerful monster on their side of the field with some potent effects, and you're replacing them with just beat sticks that your opponent can use to just try to attack you. And of course, Magician Girls love being attacked because then you can trigger all of their effects. So we're playing 1 copy of Gamma Seal, 1 copy of Kumongous. These are just like the lower attack ones, and then you have like 1 mid-range one, so I have 1 copy of Shaddoll right here, and of course I'm ending things off with 2 copies of the larger ones, so 1 copy of Thunder King, and then you play 1 copy of Jizukiru. I really highly recommend running these 2 large ones, and then for the other 3 you can run any of the smaller attack ones, because we do run 1 copy of Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. It's like it's like a dark hole where you can just wipe the field and then summon a kaiju to your opponent's side of the field and then one to your side of the field. And the one that you summon to your side of the field, you want to be the larger ones, and the one you summon to your opponent's side of the field, you want to be the smaller ones. So yeah, kaiju's a really good removal, especially because Magician Girls don't have any built-in removal effects into their archetype, and Shaddolls really are slow with their removal in terms of Squamata and Dragon having flip effects that help you do that. So having something like kaijus that just remove things from your opponent's side of the field, and you don't really have any repercussions from it because your opponent's not really going to attack into your Magician Girls with those kaijus, so you're going to be pretty safe for a little bit. Alright, so next off we were playing 2 copies of Terraforming because we do play a couple of field spells in here in the side deck because we were playing 2 copies of Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Now, if you're against a Pendulum deck, if you're against a deck that plays a lot of spell cards, like a very combo-oriented deck that goes really fast, having Secret Village and things like that might help slow the game down, especially if Wind is on the field, because Wind is a spellcaster. Your opponent's limited to 1 special summon a turn, and they can't activate spell cards, so it's fairly good. But I just didn't have space in the main deck to play it, and I thought that, you know, you could just tailor your side deck towards different strategies that your opponent's playing, so I put it in the side deck for this build. The last card that I play is 2 copies of Moon Mirror Shield, and this is actually one of the best ways to help Magician Girls attack over the opponent's monsters. Moon Mirror Shield allows you to always have 100 more attack or defense than the monster that you're battling. So if you equipped it to like Berry Magician Girl, she can attack over large monsters without any problems. So that's why I put these in here, just in case your opponent's playing like a very heavily beat down strategy. It's pretty good to have something like this on a Magician Girl. Alright, so yeah, that does it for the side deck. Next off, we're going to go into the extra deck. Alright, so for the extra deck, starting off, we were playing 1 copy of Link Spider. So Link Spider, of course, you can summon with something like Gofu. I know Gofu is at 1 right here, but really the extra deck is very flexible, so having a Link Spider is pretty nice, especially because it has a down arrow, so after you summon Link Spider, you can summon like your Shaddoll monsters into this zone, like Winda, whatever you need. So that's pretty nice. And then next we have 1 copy of Proxy Dragon. Proxy Dragon is, again, it just gives you extra space to summon some of your extra deck monsters. We don't really go for too many things in this deck, but Proxy Dragon also allows you to go climb into Decode Talker, 2 of your tokens into Proxy Dragon, then go through and Proxy Dragon into your Decode Talker, which is right here. And Decode Talker, again, is just a fantastic beat stick for this deck, especially because all of our main deck monsters are so weak. It just provides us some extra utility in that regard. And the last Link monster that I play is actually 1 copy of Mrs. Radiant. So Mrs. Radiant, I tested it out and it worked pretty well because you can, if you have a Shekinah in your extra monster zone and you have something like a Berry Magician Girl on your side of the field, you can just send them to the graveyard to summon Mrs. Radiant. Shekinah can add El Shaddoll Fusion back to your hand, and then you can go you can add Shaddoll Fusion from your graveyard back to your hand. Then you can activate Shaddoll Fusion and then summon, another Shaddoll monster into one of this Mrs. Radiant's Link markers. So that's pretty nice. And also, if she's destroyed a battle and sent to the graveyard or anything, you can just add something like Maxi or Berry Magician Girl back to your hand. So it's pretty good for generating resources as well. Okay, so that does it for the Link monsters. Next off, we're going to go into the XYZs. So the XYZs, we play 1 copy of Castell. It's just very generic removal for this deck. We don't go for too many rank 4s because really Chocolate Magician Girl is the only one that we constantly see on the field. Other things like Dragon or Squamata, we typically see in the graveyard. You're sending it there. But sometimes you'll be able to revive them with Falco and something like that, and you're going to have extra tools to be able to go for some of these plays. So next off we go for number 39, Utopia, and because of Utopia we're playing 1 copy of number S39, Utopia the Lightning. And again, Utopia Lightning is just more utility for the deck to help us run over larger monsters that we typically can't run over by ourselves, so it's pretty good. And yeah, it also helps us deal massive amounts of damage to the opponent if they have a really weak monster on their side of the field, because Magician Girls struggle in that regard. So that's it for the XYZs. Next off we go into the Synchros. So Synchros, starting off, we're playing 1 copy of Stardust Charge Warrior. Pretty good level 6 Synchro, and if your opponent's playing things like Scapegoat and stuff like that, Stardust Charge Warrior allows you to just attack into all the tokens, so they can't really use it to defend themselves during the battle phase, so that's kind of nice. But also, when this card is Synchro Summon, you can get a draw, and getting more draws is always good, especially in a deck as slow as this one, so that's why it's kind of nice. Next off, I'm playing one copy of Virgil, Rockstar of the Burning Abyss. Now, you might be wondering, well, why are you playing Virgil? Well, Virgil is one of the few synchro spellcaster type monsters that have a pretty good effect. And Virgil, if this card is destroyed by battle by card effect, you just draw a card. And because of the fact that, like Chocolate Magician Girl, if she's targeted for an attack, you can special summon a spellcaster type monster from your graveyard to your side of the field and then redirect the attack to them. Virgil has 2,500 attack. It's pretty good. And again, you just revive it, and if it gets destroyed again, you just get additional draws. So that's why he's very, very nice to have. Oops. And I'd highly recommend playing him. The next card that I play is just one copy of Cyframe Lord Omega. Doesn't really come up too often, but if you have Gofu and then like an apple or something like that, you can always go for an Omega. It's just really nice to have a big beat stick on your side of the field that you can recycle it and put it back into your extra deck and things like that. So he's not too bad to have. Again, extra deck is very flexible. You can customize it to whatever you need. But that does it for the synchros. And last but not least, we're going to go into the fusions. So for the fusions, we're playing two copies of El Shaddoll Winda. Winda is a fantastic floodgate, and I found that 2 is alright. You can play 3, definitely, because the fact that you can always revive these with Falco, with Chocolate Magician Girl, and Dark Renewal, I found that 2 is enough for me. So 2 copies of Winda is right here. And then I play one copy of El Shaddoll Grista. Grista is a great tool to use, especially because Apple Magician Girl is fire, and it just provides you some extra utility in terms of your extra deck. So most people are going to expect things like Winda or Shekinaga, but Grista is also not that bad. It also has higher attack than Winda with 2450, so it can attack over some things that she can't. And then last but not least, we play 2 copies of El Shaddoll Shekinaga, and Shekinaga is a fantastic boss monster for this deck, especially because if you have a Shaddoll card in your hand and your opponent's special summoned monster like tries to activate their effects, you can just negate it and then send that Shaddoll card from your hand to the graveyard. If it was a monster, you could potentially trigger more effects and get more advantage off of that, but with 3,000 defense, it's just really hard for your opponent to get over this, and with 2,600 attacks, you can attack over a ton of monsters that are, you know, usually monsters have like a threshold of like 2,500 attack or something. 2,600 lets you attack over those types of monsters. So really, really good card in this deck. And yeah, that does it for the extra deck, and that does it for the deck profile. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Magician Girl content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.